Welcome to On the Edge with Deneen Dias. Today, I am thrilled to be talking with my friend, Matt West from Creative Planning Business Services, which is a mouthful. Matt and I have known each other for years, and I'm super excited for all of the success that you've been having since you joined the firm. So Matt, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, Deneen, I will never forget meeting you. It was on Teams. I just had a Teams call pop up. Sorry about that. It was, do you remember? It was Halloween 2016, and you had a Halloween mask on. It was at the hallowed halls of CPA.com, and it was so much fun.
Your first day. Yes, so we used to work together at CPA.com, and that's really funny. I remember doing that, but I did not realize that that was your first time meeting me.
First time. So yes, Matt West, Creative Planning. So I'm a partner at Creative Planning, and I have the fortune of leading just a team of rock stars. They're the sales engineering team. And what they do is they help craft up solutions per our, we basically call them the solution channels. So solutions for tax, audit, our CAS team, we call it outsource accounting, payroll, alliance team, technology. So a lot of great solutions. So they enable our business managers and our wealth managers. Creative Planning is a really cool firm. So we have about 300 billion assets under wealth management. So there's about 2,200 wealth managers. These guys and gals are just remarkable human beings, great advisors to our clients. And what we do is we assemble these folks all across the country. And typically, you know, they have these small to mid-sized businesses. And Peter Maluk, our CEO, said, now, wait a second. We have a lot of great clients, but maybe not accounting services. So why don't we go find a firm, formerly known as Bergen KDB, to do this accounting tax services. So they acquired Bergen KDB last July 30th, I think is when we closed. They brought us in, and it's been an awesome acquisition. So here we are, kind of bucking the trend, because a lot of these a lot of firms have been divesting their wealth management services, but we lead into the trend. It's been working very well. We see a lot of growth, and we continue to go upstream in the wealth management services. But from an accounting standpoint, you know, Bear Melanson, the president of AICPA, says it best. There's a delta in the demand. You know, there's a lot of opportunity out there, but you just don't see licensure on the rise, and in fact, it's on the decline. But there's just a lot of people needing the services. So we're busy. There's a lot of opportunity out there.
So just to kind of, you know, I think what your situation is very unique. So to kind of touch on what you said, you were at a CPA firm that was acquired by a wealth management firm, because what I heard is the wealth advisory firm was offering some accounting services. And so they saw a need for their clients to have those type of services. So they went out there and said, we just want to acquire a firm and bring that talent into our practice so that we could have those services delivered to our customer base, which is, I don't think any other, this is a unique scenario. I don't think anyone has had this type of merger acquisition. And so thank you for sharing that, because what I want you to talk about is how that is going. Because I do, you know, I'm always telling firms that, you know, you don't have to market for new business. There's so much business sitting within the firm that needs additional services. So how can you sell more services to your client base? And so you're a great example of that strategy working. So if you could share a little bit more, and the fact that you're a partner, I think, you know, you keep getting promoted. There's not a lot of people in your position at a firm that is at the partner level and keeps getting promoted. So if you can talk about, you know, drill into that a bit, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a couple storylines here. I'd like to start at the Bergen KDB line first, and then we'll look at the wealth manager accounting firm level second. So, you know, at Bergen KDB initially, I started working with them back at 2016 when I was at CPA.com. My good friend, our good friend, Chris Gallo,
Yeah,
visionary. He
definitely a visionary.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So he was standing up a sales and use tax practice, and he had called me up and he said, back when I was at CPA.com, he goes, I think this Wayfair thing is going to flip, and I need a
Mhm.
technology to help with all the sales and use tax. CPA.com, what do you have? And I was back then working at CPA.com, so him and I worked together and helped stand up his sales and use tax practice, and that's how I got connected with Bergen KDV. What made them very unique is they were a very progressive firm. Progressive in the fact that they had a very strong business development arm. So a lot of firms, they grew from a referral source, from center of influence, but there wasn't a proactive marketing arm. Where Bergen KDV, they have a sales force. We have a sales force, and they would grow very proactively within their specific channels. So I joined their team in 2022, and we started building out different type of CAS markets and CAS verticals before the creative planning acquisition. So part of that was this progressive mindset, and we leaned into technology. So back when forecast planning analytics, when firms were thinking, all right, well, this is kind of cool and this was different, we had already laid the
Yeah.
groundwork to say, oh, FP&A is where it's at. And it's not a question of, are you interested? It's no, if you're going to engage with us in an accounting advisory type engagement, you got to have forecasting and planning. When I engage these type of clients, they can't even spell margins, let alone they don't even know that they need this. But once they start looking at, oh, margins, I didn't even get month-end P&Ls for Pete's sake. But once they start going, oh yeah, I can see what my percentage, now they can start making some really great decisions.
Business decisions. Yeah.
Deneen, you and I were talking before we started, going through the session here. The more I get tenured in my career, the more I appreciate some of the original content, the OG content. It's funny, when I was early in my career, I'm like, oh, this stuff is boring, but now I really appreciate the OG. And some of the OG content was, some of the principles. Well, what do our clients really appreciate about, firms?
Yeah.
Well, proactive advice.
Yeah.
Being very proactive and saying, look, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, you're paying me to look out for you and really future-proof your
Right.
organization.
Right.
We're doing this because we know this works, because we have hundreds, if not thousands, of satisfied customers in this specific vertical.
Right.
So
right.
part number one is Bergen's Bergen back at the time was very proactive, very progressive in adopting technology. If the technology in the advisory was going to fail fast and move on. Fortunately for us, sales and use tax, forecasting, analytics, AI, that I'm really excited to talk to you about in a second,
Yeah.
succeeding. But apart from that is when they found talent, and maybe the jury's still out yet, but they found me. So I think part of it is they wanted to help, take some of my ideas and put me in more of that leadership type role to help, enable the team. So that's how I was able to scale up in the ranks quickly.
Great.
But it was to the mantra that, CPA.com and AI CPAs, you don't have to go through the traditional, in an audit or tax to get partner. You can go outside the realm to become a shareholder or a partner.
So, and what you're saying resonates with me, obviously, because, at CPA.com, we were training firms on how to be forward thinking and how to be advisory and how to switch away from the traditional services and offer these additional advisory services. But it makes me think of my girlfriend who called me last year because she owns her own business. She's in the metaverse. Her husband owns his own business. He's in 3D printing. And they live in Amsterdam. And she called me and she's like, I know you work with accounting firms. And she's like, I am so unhappy with my firm. And what are they supposed to do for me? Because he's charging me all this money for things that I don't want. And I know I don't care. I know my books are a mess. And I was like, do you feel like your accountant understands your business? No, was her answer. Do you feel like your accountant is helping you like understand, like make storytelling of your numbers, helping you understand your numbers? No. Do you feel like your accountant understands your vision? No. And I'm like, well, then there are accountants out there like your firm that will have the kinds of conversations that she wants to have. She wants to understand profit and loss. She wants those KPIs, and she's not, I mean, she's young, she's in her 40s, and she's saying, my husband wants this too. Like, I like this, I thought we were gonna like this new accountant and he was gonna get my husband's business too, but we're not happy. And when I talk to firms and I'm like, do you think you're underservicing clients like that? Would you say that you have clients at your firm that are not, I feel like there's a disconnect. They're not getting the value that they're looking for from you. And so I think there's a supply, I always say, like a supply and needs gap. There's just supply and demand. This is in demand. What you're talking about is in demand, but there's not a lot of firms doing that. So that's your differentiator. And that's clearly because you understand that is why you're getting promoted and now you're running a team. But I'd love to hear more about how you're talking to clients, like so that they understand. Maybe they're coming to you for help with payroll or a bookkeeping, but once you start engaging them in a discussion, how do you talk to them so they understand, with me, you are going to get FP&A. With me, you are going to get something different than what you're asking for?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, from a client standpoint, how we're talking to them, and you hit the nail on the head, is clients don't know specifically from the blocking and tackling what they need, but they do know that I'm running a business and I look at my bank statement. And at the end of the day, do I have more or less money in the bank? They're looking to us, they're looking to me to say, how do I keep more of the money in the bank, and how do I keep my employees satisfied? Then you guys figure it out.
Yeah.
And what are some of the KPIs that I should be looking at, drilling in specifically? I don't care how I get there. So, me, and I'm big into being very simple in nature. So I have my own personal KPIs, and I don't mind sharing because they're fun to me. So
Cool.
at my age, there's a certain weight that I want to weigh. There's a certain body fat percentage, and there's a certain weight that I want to bench press. That's it. Those 3 KPIs, and I'm tracking, and I'm not going to share the exact numbers, but if I get close, and I'm close to those numbers, and if I'm getting a birthday here pretty quick, then if I hit those KPIs, I'm good. How my trainer gets me to those numbers,
Right.
Don't care.
Exactly. It's a great example. Yeah.
So in the initial interview process, all right, tell us where the organization wants to go. We start from there. And what's so great, and we go back to the whole wealth manager methodology. And by the way, creative planning, our wealth managers are awesome. Highly, highly, highly recommend. If you don't have a wealth manager, go out. This isn't an advertisement.
Good for you. You just really believe in them.
I really believe in us. I use our wealth managers, but their process, what they do is they go, all right, Matt, when do you want to retire? Well, in 14, 15 years. All right. And then they deconstruct the process. We do the same type of thing from an accounting process is, all right,
what are your goals? Yeah.
3 to 5 years. And then we start deconstructing that in what's your P&Ls look like? We don't have it. There's some really cool technologies that what I can do is I can go and grab that data within about, Deneen, 30 seconds. I get a P&L by month. I get a P&L by year. I get comparatives. I get ratios, and it gives me a quick snapshot. And I can say, uh-oh, what was this liquidity event right here? Did you know about this? And they might go, oh,
yeah.
We made a few mistakes. It's like, all right, that's okay. But then we can start circling some of these events, and we can say, all right, let's pull this thread a little bit, and now we can start advising on these type of threads. And this is where that secret sauce really starts to happen.
Yeah.
We take this macro picture, we get down to the micro, and it's really, I love the metaphor of death by 1,000 cuts, because that's really what it's not the big
right.
thing, it's not the big events, it's these little things that we can just course correct.
Right. So it's the way you talk about the data And that's what's different, right? Instead of just gathering the information and reporting on the information, you're really looking at the data, and you're able to look at the data and pinpoint some triggering things that are happening and bring them to light, so that you can either, maybe it's a good thing, right? Can keep doing this, or maybe it's a bad thing and let's stop doing this. And so that's, what I'm passionate about, obviously working at an AI company, and look at, and BotKeeper is doing all of the mundane things to free up the talent at the firm to be able to look at the data in different ways and advise on the data in different ways. But we're seeing it's not easy. Firms are really struggling with this. To me, it's a mindset shift more than anything. And so I know Bergen and now Creative Planning is progressive, and you are well ahead of a lot of the other firms in how you're using technology and how you're talking to clients. But can you share more about your mindset of data and AI and where you think that's all going for the profession in the next couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely, I can. So I've got a couple metaphors, and I'm big into metaphors because first of all, I'll take a step back, and I always, when I start my meetings, I always like to drive culture, because at the end of the day, and I always get to pinch myself. Part of my education, I do have a master's degree, and part of the study was psychology. It's like, what's a psychology guy doing in accounting and wealth management? It's like, beats the heck out of me, but I'm having a lot of fun. And so I always love to start with culture, because we are humans. It's like, as far as I know, unless this is an AI thing, and how do we tell? If you look at some of the chat bots and whatever, but at the end of the day, I still believe that we're humans, and we all have a need to be liked and want to communicate and be understood, because that's a fundamental principle. So when we start thinking about this mind shift, I'm going to first draw on a metaphor, and that metaphor goes back to I'm a pilot. I always love to talk about flying, one of my favorite topics, and it reminds me back in flight school. And in flight school, you have to learn how the plane flies. And there's really four forces. No matter how much AI, because AI is in flying as well, and how much you program in engineering, these forces do not change, even with the drones and whatnot. And it's gravity, it's thrust, it's lift, and it's drag. That's it. No matter how you tweak it, it's those forces.
Those things. Yeah.
So when you fly the aircraft in Sydney, your husband, he'll be fascinated with this, I'm sure, because we've had conversations. But with those forces, when you get up and you fly the airplane, you get the feel for the airplane, and you get the balance and whatnot. AI can take over once you get the aircraft off the ground, and it's just small little tweaks and variances to keep the plane en route. So where AI can take over is, oh, there's weather, so we're going to deviate here. Oh, there's lift, where the air temperature is getting the plane up or it's getting the plane down. You've got these drafts and whatnot. AI can predict. Okay, so maybe we've got traffic ahead, so it's going to help us en route. So AI is going to help us enable for a better flight experience. But we, as the pilots, can help make the decisions. Ultimately, the decision is upon us. And I think if we were to take and assimilate the same from an accounting standpoint, like a BotKeeper, okay, so I might have 1,000 transactions, and for the most part, just like flying, we're going along, and we have a little bit of turbulence here, so we're going to go up a little bit or down a little bit. But the big variance, I see this massive thundercloud, AI, we see this massive transaction here. Right. We're going to stop production. We're going to do something about this. We're going to call out the anomaly.
Right.
I'm going to take a quote from my favorite show, The Office, and I'm going to assimilate it to the Office. AI to me is like, people get very scared, kind of like this whole Terminator effect. And I don't think it has to be the Terminator.
I agree.
It's disruptive, very disruptive, but it's up to, you can either be steamrolled or, or not. It's up to the object to be steamrolled. And we don't have to be steamrolled. We can jump on the steamroller and go, all right, let's ride this thing. let's stay ahead of the curve. So, you know, I was on a podcast with our CEO, Peter Maluk, and it always stick with me is when you think about inflation, and there's multiple strategies. You know, you could take all your money, and I'm not a wealth manager. Let me put this very clear. I'm not giving any wealth advice, period.
Okay.
But what Peter was suggesting is he goes, you know, you could put all your money in gold, right? Put all your money in gold, and that's going to, you know, raise with the gold standards and what have you. Or a process is you could invest, and based off your investments, that should keep ahead of the inflation.
Right.
So you can either bury your head and stand, you
Right.
could invest in gold, or you could invest and keep ahead. But the
Right.
do nothing approach is
Right.
similar to what people are doing. In the do nothing approach, you're going to be left behind.
Right.
So,
Agreed. Yep.
again, not investment advice. Let me just for those
Yeah,
of you.
no, it's a good, I mean, I think there, I mean, I saw this, I think 2 years ago at a presentation where someone put on the screen, AI is not replacing you. People using AI is replacing you. And I put that, I took a picture of that, I put on LinkedIn like 2 years ago, and I got the most likes that I've ever gotten out of anything. And now I'm starting to see that more and more. And that's certainly what we see at BotKeeper is we're not replacing humans, we're empowering them. And I think about like Excel, QuickBooks, like these are tools that were game changers for firms. And it's the same with BotKeeper. Like our machines can see trends in the data in a way that the human eye can't see, and faster than the human eye can see. And so just think about the power of that. But then because we're replacing the mundane, time-consuming, non-profitable work, it's freeing the people at the firms to do the more interesting, more valuable to the client, more profitable type of work. But that shift, I think it's here, Matt. I think it's here. I think AI, people, you know, conference that I go to, people are so interested in AI. I think the fear in ChatGPT certainly changed a lot of that. I think they recognize there's a shortage of talent, and that because there's a shortage of talent, you need to bring in more automation and technology to get the work done. But that does mean you have to shift the way you do some things and think about it differently and talk to the clients differently. But I definitely think it's here. And I definitely think you guys are ahead of the curve. And you continue to kind of lift up and see like what's happening in the next 3 years, what's happening in the next 5 years. You shared with me before this call that you're already calling people saying, what's next? Like, what's next? What should be on my radar, right?
Absolutely. I remember being at the digital CPA conference back in December. I believe it was Las Vegas. What's with Las Vegas? Everything's in Las Vegas.
Always in Vegas. Yeah, it becomes a blur, doesn't it?
It's Vegas. Let's go to like Aspen, Colorado or something like that. That would be Steamboat Springs or something fun.
That sounds great.
But
yeah.
For those of you listening, but what I'm really curious is, you know, so there was an application out there, and I know AICPA does a great job of incubating apps. But I was speaking with an app, and they said, you know, there's an application that's coming out where they're incubating right now, where it's not fully replacing CFO capabilities, but what it's doing is it's saying like predictive weather modeling, same thing from a financial perspective, where it's taking different type of data points, aggregating it together, and then blending it and saying, okay, what happens if interest rates does X? What happens if inventory based off of your current trends? What happens if buying trends? What happens if the what's that mug called that everyone loves? The
Stanley.
The Stanley comes with the instead of hot pink, the new colors fuchsia or orange. Or that trend is beyond me, but by all means, that's your thing. Do you? but it's able to take the place of what FPA was, I think, the initial salvo, but now it's bolting onto the ERPs, because again, where I'm seeing each year has a theme and has a flavor of what clients really want. And today, I believe clients just can't get enough of this. What can help me really help future-proof my organization? Last year, it really was, well, spin me up a dashboard to help me make
Oh,
decisions. This year is, now that I got the dashboard, help me understand what the heck these metrics mean, because
oh.
I want to start making some great decisions.
That's awesome. Well, and I think about when I don't even know what digital conference it was. It might have been all the way back in 2016. We had a futurist come in and talk about future trends that were happening and bizarre things he was talking about. Like one was that we are going to be able to 3D print food. And so if you want a deep dish Chicago pizza, you can go get a pod and 3D print and it'll look and taste just like a 3D, just like a deep dish Chicago pizza. My mind was blown and I researched it and that is the case. Another thing he talked about is how we're going to be able to inject little robots into our minuscule robots into our body that will be able to swim around and find cancer and inject the cancer with poison. I was like, wow, I researched that. It's happening. But the one thing that how he said, what does that mean for the accounting profession? He was saying with voice activation, one day you're going to be able to say, Alexa, buy me a pair of jeans. And she's going to know what size you are, what brand you like, and your credit card and buy you jeans. You're going to be able to say, Alexa, book me a flight to Vegas. And she's going to know you like the aisle seat, you like to fly Delta, and she's going to have your Delta credit card. But from an accounting perspective, your clients are going to be able to say, Alexa, what are my Q4 earnings? And she's going to tell them what their Q4 earnings. And to me, that shook up the room because that's something that technology will be able to replace with the work that firms are doing. So if that's coming, how do you stay ahead of the trend? And how do you think about, okay, if technology is going to be able to have instant access to some of this information, we've got to really be able to evolve and look at that data in a way clients can't and understand what their goals are, be able to talk to them about their numbers in a way that they really benefit from. And I'm watching the time because I did want to now switch a little bit into how you are growing your client base at creative planning, because what you're excelling at is also unique. So I'd love for you to kind of share with all this future, technology, automation, being in that, virtual CFO, how are you bringing that to other clients within the firm? Can you share with me what your philosophy is and what your successes are there?
Yeah, I think it's going back to old school. Old school, it's not very hard. Clients are 16 times more likely to do business with you if you treated them well the first time. Reminds me of the local restaurant, and that's why it's so vastly important to treat your clients well. So those of you listening, if you're a client facing, treat your clients well every single time. If you're having a bad day, go home. Eat something, take a nap, go back and refresh. That's why I'm so passionate with my team. Culture, if you need to take a PTO day, I want you fresh and operating at 100%, because if you're at 50%, you're going to do more damage. Part number one, make sure your team is taken care of. Next, the old school mindset is it's very important as you're taking care of your customer, and it's these basic core tenets that often get overlooked. Just like Deneen, when I was talking to you about that tenets of flight, even though we have technology jam-packed into these airplanes, the same thing with this client relationship and client growth, it's the same thing. I don't care what type of technology, whether you're sliding into DMs, that's for you younger folks, like, you know what that means. For your older folks, ask your kids what that means. But if your technology or FaceTiming, whatever it is, we still have to treat your clients as king. But what I like to do once you're treating them well is I look at, so if I have a tax client, as an example, a great thing that you can do is say, hey, have I done any proactive type advice for you? Well, what do you mean? It's like, well, have we done any type of tax planning? Have we done any type of analytics to give you any type of, have we looked at some forecasting? Have we done any type of benchmark study? My friend up the road who does awesome wealth management, 401k. I affectionately call my wealth management team the Swiss Army knife. whether that's good or bad, because I do so many awesome things. You know, we do these great and vice versa. So it's connecting these dots and being a facilitation. You know, we do everything from insurance, we do wealth planning, we do estates, trust. You know, it's just asking the question and saying, we do these things not to sell you, we do these things to help you. So
Yeah.
I want you to think of me.
Right.
And it's just, whenever I have an interaction with you, I'm always trying to pre-think. So if it's tax time, well, did you maximize your IRA? I want to lower your tax liability to the extent that the law will allow. From forecasting, planning analytics, I know about 95% of you have not done a budget. You know why? Because when I ask, about 95% of the time goes, what's a budget? I don't even know what. I just do what I did last year and multiply times 5%
Right.
more and call it good. It's like, well, let's put a little strategy to that.
I like that you're saying you're a dot connector, right? And I also like that you're saying you're not selling to the clients. You're just telling them what our firm offers all of these additional services. When you're ready, talk to us about it. Come to us, and we have somebody that is an expert in this space. So, and they trust you because you're their accountant. Can you share with me though how that works? If you were saying that you have a referral strategy, like, because you're not talking to all you're not talking to all the clients, but when the partner is, you've trained the partner, I guess, to mention something, and then do they bring you in, or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. Think of it more from, if your doctor is a generalist, then the generalist will refer the specialist, and it really is that simple. We don't pretend to be anything that we're not. It's just a functional knowledge of, if I have a sales and use tax issue, my friend Mr. Chris Gallo can give me all your sales and use tax, and we'll take care of it from there, and vice versa. So
Right.
we have a wonderful team on the business manager side of the equation. Their sole responsibility is to own relationships, and then they quarterback resources. And on the flip side, from a wealth manager side, they quarterback resources, and it's this flipping back and forth of generalists to specialists. They get out of the way and let the specialists go in, do the job, and the wealth manager and the business managers maintain those relationships, and it works fantastically.
That's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I love it. Well, thank you, Matt, for sharing all of your analogies and your words of wisdom. I loved chatting with you. Yeah, you're welcome. If folks want to get in touch with you, because I know you love talking about this stuff as much as I do, if anybody wants to reach out and connect, how can they reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. Very simple. Matt.west@creativeplanning.com.
There it is, folks. Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.